sometimes regarded as a nuisance and sometimes as a blazing forest fire. In the ocean, however expert swimmer one may be, the struggle for existence is very severe. If someone comes forward and lifts the struggling swimmer from the ocean, he is the greatest savior. Perfect knowledge received from the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the path of liberation. The boat of Krishna consciousness is very simple, but at the same time, the most sublime. So this is a very, very important slok. So we were discussing 4.35 last time, in which the glories of the transcendental knowledge were said, right? If you remember. And Krishna had explained, and we had discussed actually, that in 35, 36, 37, and 38 shloka numbers of 4th chapter, what has Krishna explained? He says that when one gains the transcendental knowledge, he says in 35 that we will not fall prey to illusion. In 36, he says that the most following listeners, Vinayak, mute your phone. So in 35, everyone should ensure that their phones are muted when they join, because it disturbs the whole phone. Okay. 35, we do 35. He says that we do not fall prey to illusion. In 36, which we are reading today, he says that the most fallen of the sinners. Mr. Vinayak, what is happening? 37, this knowledge burns all our karmic reactions. And 38, this knowledge is supremely pure and it is the matured fruit of all mysticism. Right? So we discussed yesterday, and what did we last time rather? What were the stories that we discussed, if anyone remembers? We discussed the story of Jada Bharat, right? And we discussed the story of this man, who makes a show of his death, and he understands really what the family thinks about him. So today we go to the 36th shlok, and we say it is apichedasi papebhya sarvebhya papa pritama sarva jnana plavenaiva vrijinam sancharishyasi. So even if you are considered to be the most sinful of all sinners, when you are situated in the boat of transcendental knowledge, you will be able to cross over the ocean of miseries. Okay. So now this hope is this shloka is a shloka of hope. It is bringing a lot of hope to all of us. Why? Because what does it say? Api chedasi papebhya. That if a person is considered to be not sinful, but most sinful, even then such a person, by getting transcendental knowledge, getting the knowledge of bhakti, can be delivered. He can be saved. Right? Like chanting of the holy name. What is it said about the chanting of the holy name? Many times we must have experienced that devotees will insist, that we should chant. They will request us to chant. They will tell us to chant better. They will tell us to chant regularly. They will chant us, request us to chant 16 rounds. They will request us to chant more rounds than 16 on festivals and special days and all. Why? Because the holy name, the Harinam, has strength to burn sins which we cannot commit. Right? Similarly, by gaining transcendental knowledge, one can get freed from all miseries in life. Right? And then this matter about a sinful person or a very sinful person being delivered will be further expanded by Krishna in the next verses, maybe in 4.38. Now, what do we need to know from the present verse? We need to know that to have knowledge, and we need to put it into practice. Only having knowledge is not enough, but putting that knowledge into practice is very important. So it is called as Jnana and Vijnana. Jnana is knowledge, and Vijnana is putting it into practice. Prabhupada says that knowledge without being put into practice is what? is dry and useless, right? So knowledge is what? Nothing else but another word for jnana. But what is this jnana? This jnana is divya jnana, not the jnana of how to run how to run a business or how to drive a car or how skillfully we can be PC savvy and net savvy. No, transcendental knowledge, right? So therefore, what Krishna means here is that any person who may be fallen or the most fallen can be purified simply by gaining knowledge, and anyone and everyone can be purified by getting this knowledge. So now what is important here is not where I am, but it is important in which direction we are going. Whether I am in the mode of goodness, passion, or ignorance. What does this mean? It means that suppose there is one person who is very close to Krishna, but he is moving away from Krishna. So what it means, where that person is not important, but is important in which direction that person is heading. Or there may be a person who's far away from Krishna, but is heading towards the direction of Krishna. So who's better? The person who's close to Krishna but is moving away is better, or the person who's far away from Krishna but is moving towards Krishna is better? I guess the second one. So Prabhupada said the same thing about us in Indians. He said the Indians are very close to Krishna, but they are going far away from that culture. And foreigners who are his devotees or his disciples, they said that they are far away, but they are coming towards Krishna. So therefore, I repeat, what is important is not where I am, but it is important in which direction I am heading, towards Krishna or away from Krishna. That is important. Like when Prabhupada, when he went to the US, at that time, there were many Indians who were leading sattvic life, or sort of. Thus, they were close to Krishna, as we were discussing. But the issue was what? They were looking in the opposite direction. And as we discussed just now, his devout disciples of Prabhupada, who were Westerners, they were in the mode of ignorance. But they were away from Krishna, but they were looking towards Krishna. Right? On Monday, Wednesday, Friday, we have been reading the book called as Radha Damodar Vilas, or before that, we have read so many books where we've got references of people who are not born as Hindus, not born as Sanatanis, who became devotees. And we were just reading yesterday also that there was one devotee who was a professor in a college. He was he was not a Hindu, he was not a Sanatani. We were talking, in America we were discussing yesterday, you remember? And when the college authorities, which were a Christian owned college, a Baptist college, what happened? When they understood that this guy is a Hare Krishna, they threw him out of the job. But he didn't say, oh, I am losing my job, I should leave Krishna Bhakti. No. He said, okay, if they have thrown me out, thrown me out. But I will then stay back and help to make a temple. So what is important? He may not know, like we all know, the etiquette that we have to eat with right hand and all this we know. So that is the whole problem. Etiquettes are required. But what happens? What is important? We are in which direction, right? So these hippies in the US, for those of us who don't know what are hippies were young boys and girls, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20 and onwards, but less than 30. They had left home. They were immersed in ignorance. They would wander on streets. They gave up college. They gave up their homes. They gave up everything that was standard. They were breaking all four regulative principles. But the silver lining to some of these hippies was what? They were, or rather all of them, they were completely disenchanted with the way of life that they were leading. What did this impel them to? Some of them at least, to mode of goodness. And those who came in touch with Prabhupada and the devotees became devotees themselves. Right? Now, there were many spiritual gurus, so-called spiritual gurus in America when Prabhupada reached. Already they were there. But still these people were genuinely attracted to Prabhupada and they got transformed. And Prabhupada said, you know what? He said, I am what? Some people asked him, what is your miracle? He said, I converted the hippies to happies. Right? And these hippies who were doing all these obnoxious things became so purified because they accepted the knowledge that they started chanting 16 rounds, following the regulative principles, and They were completely pure, they became, and they're following till date, last 40, 50 years. Now, in this discussion, if you have observed, there is an apparent contradiction. On one hand, it is said that a person who accepts knowledge will become a jnani, and thus will be saved. However, a person who is situated in the mode of ignorance, a person who is sinful, now the question is, how could such a person become a jnani? You understand the contradiction. It says that if you are to become liberated, you have to become a jnani, you have to get in knowledge. But the question is then, how does a person in the mode of ignorance take jnana? Like a person is in the mode of ignorance, you make him sit for a class, he will not sit. Right? They are not able to acquire knowledge. And that very thing Krishna is clarifying here. He's saying beyond doubt that a sinful person, or let us say the most sinful person, can be saved by riding in the boat of transcendental knowledge. What does this mean? Our Vaishnava Acharyas explain. They say that this means that Krishna, by this verse, Krishna is glorifying the Divya Jnana, the transcendental knowledge. Why? With the intent to establish that with the tool of knowledge, the most sinful person can be redeemed. But what is the caveat? Provided that such a sinful person chooses to take to the transcendental path. So ultimately, you have to do something. Without that, nothing is going to happen. And a glaring example of that is the story of Narad Muni delivering a very, very hard-hearted, cruel-hearted hunter called as Mrigari. Now, those of you who have seen the group today, the Sankirtan group, in that I have posted one screenshot, and I have said that this is the theme for today. So, can all of you see that? Are you able to see that screenshot of today? Not the attendance, the screenshot before that. If you can see, there are two saintly persons in saffron color on the left side, and on the right side, there is one person in white clothes with a kanthimala in his neck. So he's he's doing something. Can someone carefully see and tell me what they are doing, what this person is doing? Can anyone guess? Everyone has seen in the group, in the Sankirtan group. Anyone can tell me what this person is trying to do? No one? Okay, then we'll have to hear the story to know that.
Trying to collect the dust of the munis or something like that?
Mataji, okay, you are very close, but you do look carefully in that pic. Now, I don't know how clear it has come to you. Let me see. You'll see near his cloth. Can you see something black?
Yes, sir. Maybe beads or...
Very close, very close. He is taking away ants in his path so that they are not stamped upon. And who's this person? This person is Mrugari, who was such a hard-hearted. So I'll tell you the story. What happened? Once upon a time, Narad Muni, who he can visit everywhere and anywhere at will. After visiting Lord Narayan in Vaikuntha, he went to Prayag to bathe in the confluence of the three Ganga, Triveni Sangam, Ganga, Yamuna, and Saraswati. So what happened then? Okay, what I had done actually was I had opened a story so that I could in detail tell all of you. So I better read out that story rather than explaining, because then all the points will come in that. So I'm reading the story. The great saint Narad is so liberated that he can go to Vaikuntha planets to see Narayan and then immediately come to this planet in the material world and go to Prayag to bathe in the confluence of the three rivers. Means we should understand that how important is this Triveni Sangam. A person who has visited Vaikuntha, has had darshan of Lord Narayan, still comes down and takes bath in the Triveni Sangam. That means just see how holy this place is, So we should make it a point, to have a yatra here as soon as possible. The word Triveni refers to a confluence of three rivers. The confluence is still visited by many hundreds and thousands of people who go there to take bath, especially during the month of Magh, which is called as Magh Mela. That is in January, right? This month is very cold. A liberated person who has no material body can go anywhere and everywhere. Therefore, a living entity is called as Sarvaga, which indicates that he can go anywhere and everywhere. Presently, scientists are trying to go to other planets, but due to their material bodies, they are not free to move at will. However, when one is situated in his original spiritual body, that is the Atma, he can move anywhere and everywhere without difficulty. Within this material world, there is a planet called as the Siddhaloka, whose inhabitants can go from one planet to another without the aid of machine or space rockets. In the material world, every planet has a specific advantage, Vibhuti Bhinna. In the spiritual world, however, all the planets, the spiritual world has many planets in it, right? All the planets and their inhabitants are composed of spiritual energy. Because there is no material impediments, it is said that everything in the spiritual world is one. So anyway, so Narad Muni saw that a deer was lying on the path when he was going through the forest, and it was pierced by an arrow. It had a broken leg and was twisting due to much pain. When farther ahead Narad Muni went, he saw a boar pierced with an arrow. Its leg was also broken and it was also twisting in pain. When he went a still further little bit, he saw a rabbit who was also suffering. Narad Muni was greatly pained at heart to see the entities suffer in such a way. When Narad Muni advanced further, he saw a hunter behind a tree, and his hunter was holding arrows and he was ready to kill more animals. The hunter's body was blackish. He had reddish eyes and he appeared fierce. It was as if the superintendent of death, Yamaraj, was standing there with bows and arrows in his hand. He was appearing like Yamaraj. When Narad Muni left the path, forest path, and went to the hunter, all the animals immediately saw him and fled. When all the animals fled, the hunter wanted to chastise Narad Muni with abusive language. But Narad Muni's presence, he could not utter anything abusive. Means when Narad Muni went there, all the animals ran away seeing Narad Muni. So he thought, this hunter thought, "Arey, mera opportunity gaya to hunt them down." And he wanted to give bad words to Narad Muni, but because of the strong spiritual presence of Narad Muni, he could not utter anything bad. The hunter addressed Narad Muni as follows: "O Goswami, O great saintly person, why have you left the general path through the forest to come to me? Simply by seeing you, all the animals I have hunted, I was like planning to hunt, have fled." Then Narad Muni replied, "Leaving the path, I have come to settle a doubt that is in my mind." He's telling the hunter. Now see how intelligence has to be used, how preaching has to be done. It is very important here. He says, "I have a doubt." He's not telling him what you're doing is cruel, leave it. No. He says, "I was wondering whether all the boars and other animals that are half killed belong to you." The hunter replied, "Yes." Why are you saying so?" Narad Muni then inquired further. He said, "What? Why do you not kill the animals completely? Why did you half kill them by piercing their bodies with arrows?" Narad Muni said, "You should have killed them completely. Why are you keeping them in pain?" So the hunter replied, he said, "My dear saintly person, my name is Mrigari. Mriga Ari. Mriga means animals and Ari means one who kills them. Enemy of the animals. My father taught me to kill them in that way. When I see half-killed animals suffer, I get great pleasure," he says. "I feel nice when I see them dying with half." Because he's not killed them. If they kill, they'll die immediately. No. What he's doing, he's keeping them half dead. So they keep on suffering and then die. Narad Muni then told the hunter, he said, "I have one thing to beg of you." The hunter replied, "You may take whatever animals or anything else you like. I have many skins if you would like them. I shall give you either a deer skin or a tiger skin." Narad Muni replied, "I do not want any of the skins. I am only asking one thing from you in charity." He's thinking Narad Muni asking him in charity. He said, "I beg you that from this day on, you will kill animals completely and not leave them half dead. You understand what this means? Actually, this is called as intelligent preaching. Actually, is it good for a sadhu to tell someone to kill? No. But in exceptional situations, to reduce what a person is doing, we have to tell some people. Means you all can't imagine, those of you know me personally, but there are cases where I've asked some people to stop chanting or not come to temple or not come to class because the extreme situations were there. So going ahead in the story, the hunter replied, "My dear sir, what are you asking me? What is wrong with the animals lying there half killed? Will you please explain this to me?" So Narad Muni replies, he says, if you leave the animals half dead, you are purposefully giving them pain. Therefore, you will suffer in retaliation. Now, this is an authoritative statement given by the greatest authority, Narad Muni. If one gives another living entity unnecessary pain, one will certainly be punished by the laws of nature by a similar pain. Although the hunter Mrugari was uncivilized, he still had to suffer the result of his sinful activities. However, if a civilized man kills animal regularly in slaughterhouses to maintain his so-called civilization, using scientific methods and machines to kill animals, one cannot even estimate the suffering awaiting him. This is for all of us who consume meat or have consumed meat. Okay, if we used to consume meat and we have stopped now and we are chanting, then Krishna will take away the sins. But if not, then we don't know what will happen. We can't imagine how much bad it will be. So those of us who are trying eating still should slowly and steadily stop eating that. We can hardly imagine the suffering of one who maintains a slaughterhouse. He endures suffering not only in this life, but in his next life also. It is said that a hunter, a murderer or killer is advised not to live and not to die. If he lives, he accumulates even more sins, which brings more and more suffering in the future. He is advised not to die because his dying means that he immediately begins to endure more suffering. Means if he lives, he kills others, and if he dies, he's starting suffering of his reaction. Therefore, he is advised not to live and not to die. So, anyways, as a follower of Vedic principles, we accept the statement of Narad Muni in this regard. It is our duty to see that no one suffers due to sinful activities. Foolish rascals are described in Bhagavad Gita as Maya Aparta Jnanam, which indicates that although they are superficially educated, Maya has aparatat, she has taken away their knowledge and gone. Right? We see that, no? People are so educated, but they fight with their husband, with their wife, with their neighbors, with everyone. They behave very badly, they behave very cheaply. They have extramarital affairs, they break all regulative principles. What is the use of such kind of education? Right? So what is it called? Maya aparta chetasa. Maya aparta jnana means that Maya has taken away their jnana. First thing, they don't have it. Such people are presently leading the human society. All our leaders are like that today, except for few. In Srimad Bhagavatam, they are also described as andha yata andhai upagiyamana tepi satantrya urudham nibaddha. It says, if they're all blind, the leaders of society are blind, and we are following them blindly. So a blind person is walking, we walk behind that blind person, he falls in a ditch. What will happen? All the people who are blindly following also will fall in the ditch. It says, andha yat andhair upagiyamana tepi satantrya urudham nibaddha. They remain baddha. These rascals are themselves blind, and yet they are leading others who are blind. When people follow such leaders, they suffer unlimited pains in the future, and that is what the society is doing. Despite so-called advancement, all this is happening. Who is safe? Who is happy? And who is without anxiety? Is it not? Coming back to the story, Narad Muni continued explaining the hunter. He said, "My dear hunter, your business is killing animals. That is a slight offense on your part. But when you consciously give them unnecessary pain by leaving them half dead, you incur very, very great sins." This is another good instruction to animal killers. There are always animal killers and animal eaters in human society. Because less civilized people are accustomed to eating meat, in Vedic civilization, meat eaters are advised to kill an animal for the goddess Kali, or a similar demigod. This is in order not to give the animal unnecessary pain as slaughterhouses do. In the Balidan sacrifice to a demigod, it is recommended to cut the throat of the animal in one slice, which in local language is called a jhatka. This should be done on a dark moon night, Amavasya, and the painful noises expressed by the animals at the time of being slaughtered are not to be heard by anyone. There are also many other restrictions. Slaughter is only allowed once a month, and the killer of the animal has to suffer similar pain in the next life. Therefore, the flesh of the animal is called as mamsa. That has become mas in local languages. It is mamsa. Mamsa means mamsa, mere ko aapke jaisa. Means, dear goat, I am killing you today. In the next life, the same thing will happen to me. I will also get killed. My neck also will be, throat will also be cut. At the present moment, so-called civilized society men do not sacrifice animal to a deity or in a religious or a ritualistic way. They openly kill animals daily by the thousands for no purpose other than the satisfaction of the tongue. And because of this, what happens? There is so much of suffering in this world, so much of suffering. So Narad Muni continued. He said, all the animals that you have killed and given unnecessary pain will kill you one after another in your next life, and the life after that, and the life after that. In this way, through the association of great sage Narad Muni, the hunter was a little convinced of his sinful activity. He therefore became somewhat afraid of his offenses. So see, he is sinful, but he wants to take. So then what happens further? The hunter then admitted that he was convinced of his sinful activity. And he said, I have been taught this business from my very childhood. And I am wondering how I can become freed from these unlimited volumes of sinful activity. So what is this? This is a kind of admission is very beneficial for one person. Accepting your mistake is very important. So then the question was, what next? Right? So what happened next is very interesting. The hunter continued, my dear sir, please tell me how I can be relieved from the reaction of my sinful life. Now I fully surrender unto you and fall down at your lotus feet. Please deliver me from my sins. What happens then? By the grace of Narad Muni, the hunter came to his good senses and immediately surrendered to the saint's lotus feet. This is the process what we have been discussing. Tat vidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sivaya. There is not a matter of choice to surrender to a spiritual authority. It is a matter of compulsion if you want to become happy. Just as to get a degree, it is a compulsion to study. To get a job and maintain the job, it is a compulsion that we have to work properly and efficiently. So Narad Muni assured the hunter, if you listen to my instructions, I shall find a way out. You can be liberated. So then he goes ahead. So Narad Muni continued. He says, if you follow my instructions, I shall take responsibility of your liberation. A pure devotee like Narad can give this assurance to any sinful man in this world. The hunter then said, my dear sir, whatever you say, I will do. Narad Muni immediately ordered him. What did he order him? He said, first of all, break your bow. Then I shall tell you what is to be done. Now, this is the process of initiation, of Diksha from a Guru. What is it? The disciple must admit that he no longer will commit sinful activity like illicit sex, meat eating, gambling, intoxication. He promises to execute the order of the spiritual master. Then the spiritual master will take the responsibility to take the disciple back to Godhead. So the hunter replied, now see here the practical question comes. He says, if I break my arrow, how can I control, how can I maintain myself? Narad Muni replied, do not worry, I shall supply you your food every day. I'll supply you your food. So many times people say, I am doing something bad, okay, I agree. But if I leave that, what will happen? So Krishna will take care. So the hunter replied, okay, then you go, okay, hunter said that, what should I do? So, he says, Narad Muni, I'll give you. Being thus assured by the great sage Narad Muni, The hunter broke his bow, immediately fell down to the saint's lotus feet, fully surrendered. After this, Narad Muni raised him with his hand and gave him instruction of spiritual advancement. What happened next? Narad Muni then advised the hunter, return home and distribute whatever riches. Now see, another, मतलब पहले तो धंधा करने का tool तोड़ दिया. Now what he's telling, return home and distribute whatever riches you have got to a pure Brahman to know the absolute truth. After distributing all your riches to the Brahmanas, both you and your wife should leave home, taking only one cloth to wear. Then Narad Muni continued, leave your home and go to the river. There you should construct a small cottage. And in front of the cottage, you should grow a tulsi plant on a raised platform. After planting the tulsi before your house, you should please circumambulate, matlab do parikrama of that tulsi. Plant plant this tulsi, and after planting the tulsi before your house, you should daily circumambulate the tulsi, serve her by giving her water and other things, and continuously chant Hare Krishna. So I guess every one of you have tulsi in your house, and you personally take care of the tulsi, not your servant or the mali or your mother. You should take, every one of us should take care of the tulsi at home. Then Narad Muni continued, I shall send sufficient food to you both every day. You can take as much as food as you want. So when a person takes to Krishna consciousness, there is no need to take care of the material necessities. Krishna says that he will personally give whatever we lack. Right? He says, Ananya Shintayanto Mam Yejana Paryupasate Teshaham Nityayuktanam Yogakshemam Vahamyam. Krishna says, those who worship me with love and devotion, meditating on me, on my transcendental form to them, I carry what they lack and preserve what they have. The three animals. Okay, I'll just read further. Narad Muni advises the hunter to accept only what absolutely necessary for him and his wife. Okay, the three animals that were left were killed, half killed, were then brought to their consciousness by the sage Narad. Indeed, the animals got up and swiftly fled. They ran away. When the hunter saw the half-killed animals flee, he was certainly struck with wonder. He then offered his respectful obeisance to Narad Muni and returned home. After all this, Narad Muni went to his destination. After the hunter returned home, he exactly followed the instructions of his spiritual master Narad. The news that the hunter had become a Vaishnava spread all over the village. Indeed, all the villagers bought alms. Alms means bhiksha, and presented them to the Vaishnava who was formerly a hunter. In one day, enough food was brought for 10 or 20 people, but the hunter and his wife would accept only as much as they could eat. One day, while speaking to his friend Parvat Muni, Narad Muni requested him to go with him to see his disciple, the hunter Mrigari. When the saintly sages came to the hunter's place, the hunter could see them coming from a distance. With great alacrity, the hunter began to run towards the spiritual master. But he could not fall down and offer obeisances because ants were running hither-thither around his feet. Seeing the ants, the hunter whisked them away with a piece of cloth. After thus clearing the ants from the ground, he fell down flat on the ground and offered Dandavat to Narad Muni and Parvat Muni. The word Dandavat, they say, when someone falls. So what is the meaning of Dandavat? Danda means danda. And what means like. So one falls flat on the ground like a danda. So then what happens? Oh hunter, good qualities like non-violence which you have developed are not very astonishing, for those engaged in the Lord's devotional service are never inclined to give pain to others because of envy. The hunter then received both great sages in the courtyard of his house. He spread out a straw mat for them to sit upon, and with great devotion he begged them to sit down. He then fetched water and washed the sages' feet with great devotion. Then both husband and wife drank that water and sprinkled it on their heads. So what is this? When the hunter chanted the Hare Krishna Mahamantra before his spiritual master, his body trembled. The tears swelled up in his eyes. Filled with ecstatic love, he raised his hands and began to dance, waving his garments up and down. When Parvat Muni saw the ecstatic, loving symptoms of the hunter, he told Narad Muni, certainly you are a touchstone. Because of you are this, he has become this. Narad Muni then asked the hunter, my dear Vaishnav, do you have some income for your maintenance? The hunter replied, my dear Guru Maharaj, whoever you send gives me something when he comes to see me. So that is what is that. Narad Muni actually didn't send anyone. The former hunter said, please do not send me so many grains. Only send what is sufficient for 2 people or more. So actually, it was his goodness that was attracting people. Narad Muni approved his not wanting more than a daily supply of food and blessed him, saying, you are fortunate. Narad Muni and Parvat Muni then disappeared from that place. So this is the beautiful story of Brigari. So I think we are running out of time. We have not completed. This is only one story. There is a very, very beautiful story of Haridas Thakur, which we will discuss and continue with this next time. So thank you very much to all of you. We will meet tomorrow for the reading session, and on Monday again we'll continue. But again, an announcement for all of you that those who desire to come to Udupi on